Welcome to day 172 on the trail. We have three readings for today from 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verses 35 through 58, Judges 19 verse 1 through 20:48, and 2 Maccabees chapter 6 verses 18 through 31. Today, we will spend our time in 1 Corinthians. However, I did want to briefly mention the troubling story from today's reading found in the book of Judges. The story in Judges 19 through 21 is doubtlessly hard to read and perhaps a bit confusing. The events leading up to a civil war, which nearly obliterates the tribe of Benjamin, are horrific. We also find echoes from the story of Sodom and Gomorrah from Genesis 19, when Lot offers his daughters in exchange for the visitors who have come to his home. Now, how this story fits into the larger narrative of the book of Judges and the story of the Israelites, we will have to save for another day. Now, to that end, I wanted to let you know that once we complete this first edition of the Trail podcast, our plan is to continue the podcast from the beginning in the second year and focus on passages from readings which were not included in the first year. One of my goals for the Trail is to keep these daily reflections on our readings to around 10 minutes in length for the sake of consistency and to allow us to really focus on one or two passages each day. On our next journey along the trail, in year 2, we will reflect on the stories that we couldn't explore during our first pass. Turning now to 1 Corinthians. As we come to the end of Paul's letter to the Corinthian church, Paul is addressing a specific question about the resurrection, a question which continues to be asked to this day. In 1 Corinthians 15, beginning in verse 35, "But someone will ask, how are the dead raised? With what kind of body do they come?" This is an interesting question to be addressing at the end of the letter. And I'm not saying it's a bad question. I'm quite sure that many of us have wondered the same. Some of the earliest Christians have even asked, how old will we be at the resurrection? Their answer was 33. Now, why was their answer so specific? Well, that was Jesus' age when he died on the cross. However, Paul's initial response to this question in 1 Corinthians 15 is surprisingly negative. In verse 36, Paul writes, "Fool, what you sow does not come to life unless it dies." So why is Paul seemingly so harsh? Was there something that Paul was worried about? Was he concerned that they were missing the point of the resurrection altogether? For example, consider our approach to Christmas presents as children. Why did we sneak to the tree when no one was looking and shake presents in the days and weeks leading up to Christmas? Well, we were wondering what treasures were hidden behind the beautiful wrapping paper. We wondered what was inside. But if one night, when everyone else was asleep, if you shook a particular present and it made no sound at all, if it offered no clues as to its contents, would you refuse to open it on Christmas? Of course not. You are still going to rip open the wrapping paper as your parents look on. In fact, all you really need to know about the contents of any Christmas package before you open it is found on the tag, written next to the label which says, "From." The name listed there tells you that whatever is hidden under the wrapping paper has been given by someone who loves you and wants the best for you. So Paul answers this question about the resurrection by pointing us back to what we can see right in front of ourselves every day. So Paul continues in verse 37. "And as for what you sow, you do not sow the body that is to be, but a bare seed, perhaps of wheat or some other grain. But God gives it a body as he has chosen, and to each kind of seed its own body." So where does Paul point them to? The wrapping we know. He points them to creation itself and our need to pay attention to what God has already provided. Unfortunately, we are not always good at paying attention. As Paul points out in this passage, seeds rarely resemble the type of plant they will grow into. Pumpkin seeds, for example, do not look like little pumpkins, nor do tomato seeds look like little tomatoes. So for most of us, if we want to see what plant will come from a particular seed, we need to plant it and wait. Growth takes patience. However, there's another truth related to the resurrection that Paul hints at here. To see what kind of seed you have to bury it first. In a sense, you have to let it die before it can grow into its true form. And that takes trust. The apparent death of the seed produces new life that looks nothing like it was before. So Paul continues in verse 39. Not all flesh is alike, but there is one flesh for human beings, another for animals, another for birds, and another for fish. There are both heavenly bodies and earthly bodies. But the glory of the heavenly is one thing, and that of the earthly is another. There is one glory of the sun, and another glory of the moon, and another glory of the stars. Indeed, star differs from star in glory. So it is with the resurrection of the dead. What is sown is perishable. What is raised is imperishable. It is sown in dishonor. It is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness. It is raised in power. It is sown a physical body. It is raised a spiritual body. If there is a physical body, there is also a spiritual body. So what will happen to us at the resurrection? Paul chooses to focus on what is more important. Whatever the form we will become is imperishable, glorious, powerful, and spiritual. We do not get the details. Instead, we get what is important. Because what do all of these same attributes also describe? God Himself. Is not God imperishable, glorious, powerful, and spiritual? The gift of the resurrection is defined by the giver. And if we are given these attributes at the resurrection, where will we be? With God. So what more do we need to know? What else is important regarding the resurrection than knowing that in the end, we will be with God for eternity? Thank you for joining us today. Until next time, stay on the trail.